In 2022, New York passed Local Law 11 giving non-citizens the right to vote.
Non-citizens haven't been allowed to vote in New York City until now.
Historic decision by the City Council today means hundreds of thousands more people will now have access to the ballot box.
Then Republicans in New York City challenged the law, saying it was unconstitutional.
The law is as clear as possibly could be.
City Council Minority Leader Joe Borelli was among the group of Republican lawmakers who sued the city, arguing it would change how they campaign and dilute votes.
Every administration, including the de Blasio administration, the Bloomberg administration, has been clear saying that this law would be unconstitutional.
Now the court has made a decision on whether migrants can vote in local elections. Let's talk about it. So in New York, it is good to be a migrant. First, they want to give you $10,000 in cash just for being a migrant.
Meanwhile, Mayor Eric Adams is rolling out a money-saving program. He claims it's money-saving to help migrants. Adams' debit card program for migrants will reportedly give migrants up to $10,000 each in taxpayer money with no ID check, no restrictions, and no fraud control.
On top of that, they want to put the migrants in luxury apartments.
Harlem has a well-documented relationship with Renaissance and redevelopment. But the proposed conversion of a long-vacant luxury apartment building on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard into a shelter facility.
And then on top of that, passing a law to give them the right to vote.
By a vote of 33 in the affirmative, 14 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, Intro 1867A is hereby adopted. Congratulations, Councilmember Rodriguez.
With the majority in favor, New York City Council makes history. The Our City, Our Vote bill now heads to the mayor's desk. It will give some 800,000 non-citizens the right to vote in local elections.
Today is a historic day for New York City and for the United States of America. Congratulations, Adonis.
So now Republicans and some Democrats filed a lawsuit against the city, saying that this voting for non-citizens is not only illegal, but it's unconstitutional. So they filed a lawsuit to stop this law from going into effect.
The law, which the city council passed in December 2021 and progressives praised, would have permitted at least 800,000 permanent legal residents and people with work authorization in the U.S. to vote in New York City for offices like mayor and city council. But that law never took effect because in January of 2022, critics challenged it, including Staten Island Borough President Vito Fossella, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, and City Councilman Joe Borelli, all Republicans.
So the non-citizen voting law went to a judge, and a judge in a shocking decision said that this law was unconstitutional.
Developments in the fight over voting rights. Non-citizens living in New York City will not be allowed to vote in local elections. A judge blocking the measure today after New York became the first city in the nation to grant those rights to non-citizens back in January.
The law would have allowed nearly 1 million people to vote in the city's municipal elections. But as CBS 2's Christina Fan reports, Republicans challenged the measure and they won.
A day before the primary election, a major blow for voting rights advocates. Just 7 months ago, they rallied on the same City Hall steps to give non-citizens the right to vote. Today, they learned the short-lived law was defeated in court.
We're emphasizing how important it is to emphasize your voice, and yet we continue to let 1 million New Yorkers remain silent in this process.
Passed last December, Local Law 11 granted immigrants with green cards, work authorization, and DACA recipients the right to vote in municipal elections starting next year. But on Monday, the Richmond County Supreme Court struck down the groundbreaking expansion, saying it violated the Constitution.
The law is as clear as possibly could be.
City Council Minority Leader Joe Borelli was among the group of Republican lawmakers who sued the city, arguing it would change how they campaign and dilute votes.
Every administration, including the de Blasio administration, the Bloomberg administration, has been clear saying that this law would be unconstitutional and against the current statute. And now a judge has affirmed that position.
Now, even though a judge had found the measure to be unconstitutional, New York City was still trying to register non-citizens to vote.
Staten Island Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis claims the city is trying to illegally register some migrants to vote. She says asylum seekers at a shelter on Staten Island are being encouraged to to register to vote in upcoming municipal elections. Malliotakis says a city contract with a nonprofit that runs that shelter requires voter registration cards be distributed. City Council passed a law allowing non-citizens to vote in municipal elections, but it has not gone into effect while it's tied up in court. The city's Department of Social Services says, quote, these allegations are false and baseless. DSS is legally required to include language around voter registration in shelter contracts, and this guidance applies only to eligible clients who are citizens.
So Mayor Adams and the city decided to appeal the decision. They wanted to give non-citizen migrants the right to vote. They're giving them $10,000 in cash. They're giving them luxury houses. And on top of that, giving them the right to vote means that they will be more likely to vote for Democrats.
Our vote! An 18-month battle over who can vote in New York City, now in the hands of an appeals court.
To give someone the authority to vote on a mayoral campaign, a controller campaign, a borough president campaign, a city council campaign, when they're only here for 30 days, that concerns me.
Despite raising initial questions, Mayor Adams still allowed non-citizen voting to become law in New York City, but it did not last long. Hours after going into effect, several Republican lawmakers filed this lawsuit. At the time, the head of the state Republican Party told Pix 11 News,
the state constitution is rather explicit that in its prescription for U.S. citizenship to vote in elections.
Last June, a state Supreme Court justice struck down Our City, Our Vote, ruling it violated the state constitution. But the Adams administration appealed. Friday, advocates on both sides of the issue testified during a hearing in the state Supreme Court's appellate division. Susan Lerner of Common Cause New York hopes Our City, Our Vote will once again become law.
Reinforce and recognize the right of New York City to decide how and who among its people will get to vote.
So now the battle lines were drawn. You're going up to the appeals court and you got two arguments here. One argument is saying let anybody who comes to the city vote if you're here for at least 30 days, which is ridiculous. And then you have the other side that's saying no, voting is a privilege of citizenship. If you want to vote, become a citizen. So it was up to an appeals court to make that determination. And here's what they said.
A massive ruling in the New York State Appeals Court.
A court ruled it is unconstitutional for non-citizens to vote in local elections. Fox 5's Robert Moses joins us now with more and reaction from both sides. Robert, what's happening?
Dan and Tashani, progressives favored the law that was at issue here and that would have allowed non-citizens to vote. But Republican critics fumed that voting is a right reserved for citizens. The critics have won, but this case may not be over just yet. In a 3-1 decision, a New York State appeals court ruled that the city enacted a law that would have allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections in violation of the state constitution. City Councilwoman Joanne Ariola hailed the ruling.
And it's a tremendous victory that preserves the integrity of our elections.
The law, which the City Council passed in December 2021 and progressives praised, would have permitted at least 800,000 permanent legal residents and people with work authorization in the U.S. to vote in New York City for offices like mayor and city council. But that law never took effect because in January of 2022, critics challenged it, including Staten Island Borough President Vito Fossella, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, and City Councilman Joe Borelli, all Republicans. A judge on Staten Island struck down the law. Mayor Eric Adams and the city council then appealed, which led to yesterday's decision.
The Constitution of this state clearly states that any voting, the right of voting, is for American citizens.
Fossella agrees. In a statement reacting to the ruling, he said common sense prevails in New York. He called the prospect of extending voting rights to non-citizens irresponsible and nonsensical.
It may not be the final word.
Susan Lerner, the executive director of Common Cause New York, a government watchdog group, thinks both sides made valid arguments here. So what's next?
It's up to New York City and to the organizations that intervened to protect the law to decide whether they want to appeal this decision or not. I suspect they will appeal.
Not everyone was thrilled with the ruling. Some people were quite upset. The executive director of the New York Immigration Coalition said immigrant New Yorkers deserve a say in how their local government functions and spends their tax money, and we remain committed to ensuring the expansion of voting rights.
Now, I'm going to say this. I think the court got it 110% right. If you want to vote in elections, become a citizen. Go through the process. Don't just skip the line and say, oh, well, I got a sad story now, I should have rights of citizenship. No, that's just not the way it goes. If I go to Mexico, I can't just start voting in their elections if I'm not a citizen. If I go to Canada, I can't just start voting in their elections if I'm not a citizen. You have to have some type of rules and regulations and some type of privilege to citizenship. Now, I'm going to say this. I do feel for the people who've been here who can't vote in elections, but that's just too bad. My citizenship means something. And I would hope the courts would recognize that citizenship does mean something. But let me know how you feel in the comments section. This is now being appealed to the highest court in the state of New York. So do you think they are going to allow non-citizens the right to vote in New York? Only thing you have to do is be here for 30 days and be able to work. Now, if that's the case, then all those migrants who are coming here to New York City who are going to get work authorization are going to be allowed the right to vote in New York City. So let me know how you feel in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I will see you next time. Peace.